1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
One of only a few parks I have actually been to is Knott's Berry Farm in Buena Park, California. This park is probably the park that got me into roller coasters. Knott's Berry Farm has currently 10 coasters and they do a great job with theming and having something for everyone. So this is my top 10 coasters at Knott's Berry Farm. Number 10, Timberline Twister. This is the only roller coaster at Knott's that I haven't ridden yet, but people say it's a very aggressive kiddie coaster, but it's a kiddie coaster, so that's why it's at number 10. I would have ridden it if I had more time, but sadly I didn't. I'll probably do it next time I visit. Number 9, Jaguar. This ride wasn't the greatest thing, but it is pretty fun. The layout is very tame, but the long trains make capacity good and for it to appeal to families. The ride also has a rattle, but I am able to look past it. This ride is great at interacting with the other attractions in the park. It goes through Montezuma's Revenge's loop, goes next to trees, across midways, and through an artificial pyramid. This ride is a great tame ride for families. Number 8, GHOSTRIDER. This ride is the first of 2 Wild Mouse coasters I've ridden, and this one is the worst of the 2 in my opinion. The layout is more exciting than the previous coasters mentioned, but this ride has one of, if not, the worst restraints ever. The lap bar is fine, but there's these shin guards that is hard and it kills your shins. The cars are also really cramped too. I like the layout more than the other Wild Mouse I've ridden, but the restraints are what really puts this ride low on my list. Number 7, Pony Express. This ride was just plain fun. It wasn't the longest, tallest, or fastest, but it's a very fun family coaster. Like the previous spot, I also wasn't a big fan of the restraints because I could hardly breathe in them, but I guess it's just because of the design of this ride. This ride is also very short, so I wish the ride could be just a little longer, but it has great scenery and my mom really likes this ride. Number 6, Montezuma's Revenge. This ride has a simple layout but executed very well. The launch and the loop were both really forceful and the spikes give a good weightlessness feeling. The ride is a little bit on the rougher side, but the layout definitely makes up for it. This is the oldest ride in the park and I like how this ride has lap bars instead of over-the-shoulder restraints. Plus, it's a very rare credit to have. Number 5, Sierra Sidewinder. Probably the most underrated ride in the park and in the community. This ride is super forceful for a family coaster. It's also really fun. There's only one rough patch on the very steep turn, but the rest of the ride is super smooth. I was very impressed with this ride. Definitely don't judge it by its size or its POVs. It's a tiny bit short, but the intensity makes up for it. Now we're heading into the top 4. Knott's has a great top 4, and for everyone it's a little different, but you can't deny Knott's has 4 awesome roller coasters. Number 4, Silver Bullet. This ride may not be the most forceful, but it is still a very enjoyable coaster. At the time, I heard it was getting a rattle, but it was very smooth when I rode it. It does have some good forceful moments like the vertical loop if you're seated towards the back and the final helix before going to the brakes. I'd say sit towards the back for the best experience on this. The overbank was great because it has a little bit of hang time, and this ride is very photogenic. Definitely take pictures of this when you go. Number 3, XCELERATOR. What an adrenaline rush. This ride has a launch that is legendary and it is super fun, but I noticed that after my second ride it doesn't really do much after that launch. The top hat gives decent airtime and great positives going into it. The bank turns are also very fun. My main problem is the operations as they are pretty slow when I went, but the rest of the ride is great. Number 2, HANGTIME. If you didn't know already, HANGTIME greatly exceeded my expectations when I rode it for the first time. This ride has 3 very good elements: the drop, negative G-stall loop, and an ejector airtime moment. The rest of the ride is okay and it does have a pretty strong rattle, but this ride has great positives: HANGTIME and airtime. It is a very well-rounded coaster and that's why it's this high. I originally thought this coaster was the best, but now that I think about it, I decided to put it at number 2. I've never gotten a night ride on this yet, but that might make this my number 1 at this park. But that leaves number 1 as GHOSTRIDER. This ride is incredible. I have to admit my most recent ride on this was a little underwhelming, but I know GHOSTRIDER can give better rides than that. What really made this ride number 1 is because of the night ride I have gotten in the back seat. The airtime is good, the laterals are insane, positives are great, it's a super long ride too. Probably the drop off the mid-course brake run is the best moment on the ride. And a night ride is even better because you can't see a thing except for the orange lights on the catwalks. For a long time, I thought XCELERATOR was the best coaster at Knott's, and I was anticipating this ride to be number 1 in the park. It's not that GHOSTRIDER moved up in my rankings, it's that XCELERATOR moved down. But the top 3 at this park I think are incredible. That ends my list of the top 10 coasters at Knott's Berry Farm. Let me know down in the comments what are your favorite coasters at Knott's Berry Farm, whether you have ridden them or not. If you enjoyed this video, then please leave a like. I really appreciate it. And if you're new here and roller coasters are what you're into, then please consider subscribing for content all about roller coasters. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.